Welcome, one and all, to another humble episode of the Flycast. That's John.
Hi, I'm John.
I'm Steve. Hi, Steve. Wait, that's me.
Hi, Steve.
Right. You know, there's one thing I love about intros is you can always make it funny, awkward, you know, just to kind of like get people off guard and then get them like, hey, what the hell is the guy doing?
I mean, you can always just have fun with it, you know. Yeah, whatever.
Right. That is the cool thing about that. But yes, welcome.
Welcome, one and all, to the Flycast. This is our, we swear it's weekly. We swear this is a weekly podcast. I'm just gonna blame,
really weird.
I'm just gonna blame the holiday season and then all sorts of other nonsense. But we're back on track. We're back on schedule here. This is our weekly podcast. A couple of nerdy, D&D nerds. We got a lot of playing and DM experience. Decided we wanted to go ahead and throw this podcast together and just have some fun. Well, that's probably my own fault too. I can mix you a little bit.
What is up, Justin? Welcome, buddy.
But so that's we decided we were going to go ahead and do this whole podcast thing. Just share some knowledge, take some questions, all that fun stuff. Every week we've got a different topic, so, if you ever want to leave questions or anything like that, join our Discord server. Links are wherever you're watching this. There'll be a link somewhere. But without further ado, we'll just dive in, I guess, to today's topic, because this is going to be a fun one. It's going to be a little different. We are talking character creation, and we wanted to go ahead, and we're going to go ahead and actually make some characters here on stream, which should be fun. We decided we were both going to make the same class, and that way, like, at the end of this, you'll be able to see how one class can still be very, very different with all the different choices that you have at your disposal. Hopefully, my character and Steve's character will actually still end up being very different. But we wanted to kind of go through just kind of how we approach character creation, what kind of questions we ask ourselves, or kind of how we start with making that character, and then kind of go into some of the stuff that maybe you don't think about. Like, yeah, we'll cover, like, the rules stuff, right? Like, the DMG or the PHB says that you should do this first, or whatever. We'll cover that, talk about that, and just kind of like what we do, but then we'll also talk about, like, how do you kind of engage this character into the world the DM has made, or how do you kind of work on your backstory, that sort of thing. So because we've got so much going on, we might not actually get to questions today. We'll see. We'll try. But worst case scenario, we'll start off with questions next week or something like that. We'll make it work. We'll be flexible.
Right.
But without further ado, let's go ahead and talk characters. I'm gonna move to a different display here because we've got a character sheet to display. So we'll be kind of editing. I've got one character sheet up here, a second one for Steve's character, and then we've got like our actual materials here in PDF format that we'll just kind of be drawing from to fill this stuff out. So, should be fun. But I guess, first things first, how do you start making a character? What's your process like anyway, Steve?
Me? Starts with an idea.
Yeah.
It really does. It starts with something that I want to play, like something that I'm like, and it also starts with like, what are we running? Because sometimes, and I will be perfectly honest, I am really guilty of wanting to revolve around the players, because I'm like, what are they playing? Because I know they're like stubborn. They're gonna be like, I'm gonna play what I want to play, and I'm like, I like balance. Imagine
what you're
like
saying
balance.
basically is you like to hear what everyone else is playing and then kind of just fill in that role, like whatever is missing,
right?
That sort of role, yeah. Which isn't
right,
necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes we just want you to get to play what you want to play, though.
I agree, and I do appreciate that. And I do appreciate that. But I normally start off with an idea of something. Like I've talked about this previously, is like my idea for my next character is I said, I actually want to play a barbarian. there's this, and with me, I like
Mhm.
to take ideas from either stories that I loved, games that I loved, and how to recreate that character, but put my
Yeah.
own spin on it. So that's normally how I start. And then I think about, well, how am I going to build that? And how is it going to be effective? So then I start researching and like going, well, this combination would be good, and blah 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 blah. So
Yeah, I think that's a really good starting point. Is like rather than so like we're gonna look right here. The player's handbook does give you like a guide of how to make a character. Right? They say number 1, choose
right,
a race. Number 2, choose a class. Number 3, roll your ability scores. First of all, I think that's a bad order. But second of all, I think if you don't have any idea of what you want to do, then yeah, honestly, if you pick up the book and just start reading through what it says to do, you'll come up with a character, and that'll be fun. But I really do think the best thing to do is to really start off with a character concept, right?
right.
I want to play a sneaky type of character. Okay, well, first of all, you're not just limited to rogue if you say that, but that's good. That kind of
Hmm.
starts to mold your idea of what type of character you want to play, rather than
Right,
just start off with, it says I need to choose a race first. I think
right.
that's very difficult to do if you have no idea what kind of character you want to play. If you first choose your race, and then you get to choosing a class, and you're like, well, now I'm kind of pigeonholed a little bit by some kind of mechanical differences, maybe,
Hmm.
and it gets kind of weird there. So yeah, I'm kind of the same way. So, we did this a little bit backwards. We actually decided yesterday that we were both going to make the same class, um, and
Oh
we
God,
had. I will let you back out of it now, and we can choose a new class on the
no,
fly. Unless okay,
no,
we had
no.
decided we were both going to go ahead and make sorcerers. So this should be a lot of fun. Again, most of the time, like Steve said, and like I've said, we'll start off with a concept instead of a class per se. But we're
Right.
going to take sorcerer as our start off point. So I'm just going to go ahead and
Ah.
put sorcerer 1. I'm going to copy this on over to my sheet as well. Um, that is where we're starting off there. So we are both making sorcerers.
Lord,
It
I
it
should
should be a lot
probably.
of fun though. Now for me, in addition to obviously yeah, that's actually a really good point there. In
That's
chat,
fair.
I'm at the point where I start asking, what haven't I played yet? Yeah, I think it can be a lot of fun to keep playing like a certain archetype or whatever, but it can be a lot of fun to look at the classes and be like, well, oh, actually. I haven't played a warlock. I haven't seen a whole lot of those. I wonder what that would be like. Or, I've seen this guy have a lot of fun with barbarians. Maybe I should try one. That sort of thing. Which I think is pretty cool too. But I think when you actually sit down with your pen and paper or digital tools or whatever it is, I find the most important thing to do is go ahead and get those ability scores taken care of. Whether you're rolling them or using point buy or whatever, I think that
Right.
is usually the kind of the number one thing you should do, and then you can fill
Right.
out everything because of that. So,
Right.
um,
Exactly.
let's just go ahead and do that real quick.
Right.
Do
So I
you want
pulled up a
to?
PDF on my end. Do you want me to like fill it out and send it to you or something? Or
Well, I'm filling one out on here on either
okay.
side, so it doesn't matter too much.
Okay.
Do you want to use just like the standard array to make things easy, or
What's the fun in that?
okay? Uh, I don't know how to roll
Roll
it
it.
on here, but
You don't. Have Megan just roll some dice. She's good at that.
she's busy.
Why
Um,
was she busy? She could be like, "Hey, Megan, honey, can you roll these dice for me?" I mean, come on, man.
Oh my
But never mind.
goodness, that is
Hey,
terrible.
man, what? What? It's delegation in
Right,
the highest fashion. And
of
plus,
course.
we both know she has really good luck rolling stats.
That is true.
It's it
But
serves
fine.
two
Let's go
purposes.
ahead. Let's go ahead and you know what? I know how I can do this. Second. Boom, boom. Oh, you can do it in Google.
Okay. Unless you have to have that one feat. I do play human a lot for that. But I mean, I haven't attempted to use the Tasha stuff because I guess I'm a little bit of a purist in that, where I'm like, I'm so used to playing a human now that I'm like, if I want my feet, I'll just play a human. But there is the Tashas where you can swap out that and play the variant version. So you can basically be like a variant Tabaxi. So, you can do that too.
Yeah, but I hate that.
I'm not a fan of it either, but
hate it.
I think I'll try it at some point just so I can break up the monotony of being a human. Like I want to be like a variant elf. So that way I can give up something from that I don't like and pick up something that I do. So, that way you don't have to feel pigeonholed into always playing a human. But I personally just like being a human. So most people don't.
I have gone ahead and enrolled stats here. So I've got, my goodness, this was a really good one. Oh my goodness.
What do you got? I'll write it down.
17, 15,
okay.
15,
okay.
14, 14, and 10.
Yeah, that is solid.
I'll let those be yours since you just rolled those down. Wrote those down. Mine are worse. So yeah, I think I do honestly. So yeah, like I said, what I like to do anyway is I like to go ahead and roll the stats, and then once I have my class selected, then just go ahead and fill them on in. So
that is the only negative to how I do it, because if I don't roll well, then it kind of shits on that character because I have certain ideas for said character.
Right.
Like I wanted to be. I was thinking earlier today about how could I make Link from The Legend of Zelda. That kind of thing. I want to play that kind of a character, but not mute. Let's be honest. I talk way too much to be mute.
Right.
That part isn't happening.
So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm playing a sorcerer. So my rolls were 16, 14, 14, 11, 10, 7. Love the 7. So as a sorcerer, charisma is their key stat. So I'm going to go ahead and put my 16 into charisma. My next highest, a 14, I'm going to go ahead and put that into dexterity. Dexterity is normally important for all classes because, well, unless you're wearing heavy armor, it's going to have to do with your armor class. It's going to help out with your initiative. It's going to help out with stealth. And not necessarily things that every class cares too much about, but it's a lot extra that it does, in addition to potentially helping with weapon attacks and that sort of thing. I've got another 14, so I'm going to put that into Constitution. This is another one that's important for all classes. It doesn't do anything for, like, skills and whatnot, but it directly influences your hit points, which is pretty helpful. Then I've got 11, 10, and 7. I'm going to go ahead and dump that 7 into Strength, because, let's be real, as a sorcerer, I don't need to lift heavy things.
Nope.
And these two don't really matter too much, so I'm going to put the 11 in Intelligence and 10 into Wisdom. That's how I'm going to allocate mine.
All right. I think I shall make Zelda, because I've been playing
okay.
to them. And
we'll
because
just go ahead and
is
name her
a
now.
magic user, so I'm going to make her Zelda. Definitely going to put that 10 into Strength, because let's be honest, she has servants. We're going to give her a noble background because she's nobility.
Okay.
We're going to give her one of those 15s, but of course we'll have to adjust for race because I'm going to be an elf.
Right, I'll change that when we get to
there. Constitution, we want that to be high too, because you want the hit points and also for concentration on your spells. So even though it's not a wizard, they still take a lot of concentration spells sometimes.
Is that a 15 also then?
Mm-hmm. We're going to give her a 14 in intelligence because she's a fairly intelligent person and she's wise. So we're going to give her the 14 in that as well. And then we're going to give her this. We're going to give her the 17 charisma because she's hot as F. Okay.
These stats, my goodness. So yeah, those rolls were really, really good. I mean, we had pretty similar ideas as to where to allocate the stats. But
Mm-hmm.
as we kind of move along, we'll kind of get some choices that'll make things kind of spread out a little bit. But that's what I like to do. I also like that you already went ahead and chose the noble background. So if you look at
Mm-hmm.
the player's handbook, like it's telling you to do all this other stuff first. It says choose a race first, then choose a class, then determine ability scores. Oops, went too far. Well, went too far the other way. Then determine ability scores right down here. And then it says, now after all that, start to describe your character, and that's where it starts to say things like background and whatnot. I just think, I think that's just not helpful. I think it's always more helpful for me anyway to get my stats, get my class in mind, at least an idea, then do my background, then do kind of race and
Right.
solidify that class. So
Right.
you chose the noble background, which
I
that's gonna
did.
be down. Backgrounds are in chapter 5 here.
Right.
So that is going to give you proficiency with history and
History
persuasion.
and persuasion, which is cool because, like, if you think about it, like the history portion, she's kind of studious, but she's not stupid, and that's going to help her with her, like, this particular character. Like, this
Yeah,
fits what I would do. I want this character to be basically like this person. Doesn't have to be exact, but that's where I'm modeling it after.
right. Yeah, and that, I mean that makes a lot of sense. I think, yeah, I like that. Obviously, yeah, modeling it after Princess Zelda, she is clearly a noble, so that makes sense.
Hmm.
For me, I don't have a. I mean, all we came into this was sorcerer, so I haven't really thought of like a background or anything yet. But I'm kind of thinking. I'm kind of thinking some sort of just kind of wild magic sorcerer, I think. This dude who
Right.
just has control over the elements, something like that, is kind of where I'm landing. I don't know really what background to choose. Actually, I just scrolled to hermit. I kind of like that. Dude kind of lives in
Complete
seclusion.
opposite.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna go with hermit as my. Oops, not fine. I'm gonna go with hermit as my background. And that will give me medicine and religion.
Frickin' frackin' son of guns.
So yeah, I mean that's just kind of how I like to think of character creation anyway, is more just start to build it around kind of the idea of the character that you have. And then, I mean,
Right.
obviously everyone's going to do some sort of min-maxing, right? Like, I put charisma, my highest stat, in the one that matters most for the class. Um, but like I find it more fun to build around a character idea, and kind of let the stats and stuff fall where they may, with obviously some thought towards the mechanical side of things.
Right.
What should we do next? We've got background, we've got our stats, we've got our class.
Let's see. Let me go to the handbook here because I think this is where you got to pick your skills too, like what it's based off of. So your saving throws are con and charisma, and then you get to pick two. So Arcana, Deception, Insight, Intimidation,
Okay, you
Persuasion,
want to go ahead
Religion.
and start filling out class stuff?
Yeah.
Okay,
So I think
yeah, let's do
she
that.
like with my character background. I think I'm going to take Arcana and Religion, to be
Okay.
honest, because that would fit her.
Alright, so yeah, in your player's handbook, it's gonna start to tell you about your your class. You'll just kind of go there to the class section, sorcerer, and then right here is all the information. It starts with the class features. It starts to tell you everything. There's the handy little table that tells you as you level up. But just for level 1, yeah, you'll have proficiency in Constitution and Charisma saving throws. Let's go ahead and mark those. Constitution and Charisma. And then I'm sorry, which two skills did you choose?
I'm taking Arcana in a religion because
All right.
she's a very holier than thou type of find the direction that I'm going in with this one.
Yeah,
You know,
I like that. And then this is where we would fill out. I don't care too much about filling out some of the extra stuff right now, but
right,
over in this section right here, you can fill out like proficiency with these different types of weapons: daggers, darts, slings, quarterstaffs, light crossbows, no armor, no tools. Um,
right.
if we want to just go ahead and fill that out real quick, I'll go ahead and do the same. Then we've got Constitution and charisma for saving throws. I think this guy, being a hermit off on his own, I think nature makes sense. Actually, do I have that option? My bad. No, I don't. I thought I saw that one. I didn't. My bad. Arcana, deception, insight, intimidation, persuasion, and religion. I think insight. I like that one. That one kind of stands out to me. And I think. Like, I don't want Arcana kind of instantly jumps out for any spellcaster, but I don't think he
Right.
really has arcane understanding. He just has like that innate feel for it. So I'm not going to give that to
Hmm.
him. I'm going to give him insight and intimidation. I think that makes most sense.
Right.
Um, just kind of this random force of chaos behind him.
Right.
Okay, I like that. Do we want to keep going with the class features?
What's next on there? Let me go back to the book. Saving throws, con and charisma. So we already did that. And if we've picked skills, starting equipment would probably be different depending on the person. So like you
Yeah.
get like a crossbow, which I'd probably ask my DM if I could take like a short bow instead. That's just something I would ask because it would fit the character more.
Yeah,
And honestly,
I think that's a good spot to kind of talk about that. I think starting
right,
equipment is something that should be very pliable. I feel like, yeah, it's
right,
like, I mean, yeah, if Steve was playing in my game and it was like, hey, I just want us to take uh, a short bow instead of a light crossbow. Yeah, no problem. Um, you can also roll for your gold. That is a rule. I normally don't mind if people do that either, but I think, yeah, I think having some sort of flexibility with the starting equipment is another really good way to help differentiate some of these characters. Um, so yeah, if she were to take like a short bow instead,
hmm,
that
yep,
was really
there we are.
frustrating. I have no idea what happened.
No,
The
no,
internet
you're
apparently hiccuped. But you were saying, yeah, you can go ahead and take that short bow, and then as far as the second one there, component pounce versus arcane focus, you're going to give
yep.
her an arcane focus. This is another really fun way, especially with spellcasters, to kind of just throw some flavor in there. The book does give you a few examples of an arcane focus, like a magic orb or a crystal or a staff or something. But you had said a Triforce tattoo on her hand or something. That's really
Mm-hmm.
cool. I like that.
Mm-hmm. Because like if you're say you're like you're with a party of hooligans because it does happen, especially like in one shots and stuff, and you guys find yourself in prison. Well, most of the time they're gonna like they're gonna fleece you down. You're not gonna get anything. If you got that tattoo though, guess what? You can still cast spells, man. Unless they burn that bad boy off of you, it's not going anywhere.
All right, and then I mean, Dungeon Use Sport Pack or Explorers Pack, basically the same thing, and
Yeah, basically the
Twin
same thing. I
Daggers.
mean, that's right. Yeah, I'll take the two daggers because I feel like that's very in character. She doesn't really wield swords. It's not her
Yeah,
thing.
I like it. Yeah, for my starting equipment, I would, and again, like this is I think a good DM should be more than willing to kind of allow something a little bit different. Allow you to take that
Right.
short bow instead.
Right.
For this character here, I don't think he wants a ranged weapon at all. Honestly, I'd probably roll for my gold on him. To be honest, but I would end up with I normally don't do a component pouch. I normally do an arcane focus instead. But on him, I think a component pouch sounds interesting. This hermit who's just kind of
Right.
collected random crap in his pouch and uses that to cast spells. I
Right.
like it. So I'll grab that. I want a walking stick, and then I'll grab those daggers as well. That's basically my whole armament there. I know you had mentioned that you were going to be an elf, and I haven't actually touched race yet. So let's kind of bounce back to that real quick. So what kind of elf did you want to be?
Ooh, balls! I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, so that's the interesting thing. So we've got our finger there in the sorcerer area. As we kind of come back
right.
up to races, elves have a number of subclasses. Luckily, in the player's handbook, it's not too crazy. You just have wood elf and high elf and drow. They have all three actually.
Ooh.
But then
I mean, it's
then when
not
you start
like,
adding in Xanathars, they've got like sea elves
right.
and Eladrin and Shadowkai.
Yeah, I don't want to go that deep into it. And this is like actually not a mid-maxy approach. I want her to be a high elf
Yeah.
because that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Now, ordinarily, you'd probably want to go half elf so you get like the charisma boost, but with the roll of 17 charisma at level 1, you can not worry about that. You can just go ahead and be like, "Hey, I want to play this because this fits her." This would
Right.
be like a story choice versus like a min-max.
Yeah. So we'll go ahead and apply the ability score increases. She gets a +2 to her dex. So we'll go ahead and bump that up to 17 now, which is a
Holy
+3.
shnikes.
I know, right? Age, alignment. So these right here are just kind of guidelines as far as kind of how the race is perceived in the world of the Forgotten Realms, which is the default D&D setting. Depending on what setting you're playing in, what your DM's world is, things could be a little bit different. And even if you're playing in the Forgotten Realms, you can completely ignore both of those and do something different. But that's just kind of the default idea about the race. Size, same thing, except that it tells you your game size is medium. That's important. Most creatures are. I don't think there's a spot on this sheet to put that, but speed, walking speed is 30 feet. Almost all creatures get that, but there are some that are different. You get dark vision, a little blurb about what that does. Keen senses gives you proficiency in perception. Pretty cool. Fey ancestry means you have advantage against being charmed and can't be put to sleep. Trance, you don't have to sleep, you just concentrate at night instead. Languages, you learn Common and Elvish. And then for a high elf, get a +1 to your intelligence, bringing that to 15. And, and there you go. So this makes a lot of sense, too. You gain proficiency with longsword, short sword, short bow, and longbow. That makes a lot of sense to go ahead and grab that bow then there. Additionally, and we'll keep this in mind for when you pick your spells, but you gain an extra cantrip, and an extra language of your choice. So this is, I guess this is a part where we can start thinking about, like, how to round out the character a little bit more. If she knows Common and Elvish, what would that extra one be?
Ooh, I definitely Celestial.
Mm.
You're gonna see the direction I'm going.
Yeah, and that right there already starts to solidify kind of some of the idea of what the character is. It's nice to have that character concept coming in, so that you can kind of pull from that as you kind of start to make some of these choices, rather than just being like, oh, I don't know, I need another language. Well, show me the languages. I'll pick one from a list. Instead of kind of having that idea, well, she has a connection to kind of the heavens and whatnot. It just kind of makes sense that Celestial would be the language that you pick. And you'll kind of find this as you're building a character. When you have kind of this idea, it'll all just kind of start to fall into place there.
Exactly.
For me, I'll go ahead and move on over to my guy right now. So I'm thinking I've got kind of this hermitish character, kind of lives out in the middle of nowhere on his own, kind of controls the forces of chaos. Very, very, very mysterious type of figure. I don't want to go with something boring like a human, but I'm kind of thinking something that kind of has an innate affinity with kind of the natural world. I'm thinking this is weird. This is gonna be really weird, but I'm thinking a Goliath. I kind of like that.
Hey, that would be pretty cool.
I like
go
that.
like that.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that. This is.
You could do the Tasha's thing where you could swap things up, but it would be interesting to
Nah,
see
I'm just
like
gonna build it normal.
your strength's gonna change from a 7 to probably like what, a 9.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I think I want to do a Goliath. Why not? This is gonna be fun.
Funny.
Not very min-maxed at all, but this is, I don't know.
No.
This is kind of how I think. There's always, look, 5e is so close. Like you don't get such a widespread that just a couple of levels you can kind of compensate for a lot of this stuff. If you have a good DM who kind of recognizes that, like, oh, this person is, because they wanted to play this, is at a little bit of a disadvantage, they can try and work with you and give you maybe an item that'll kind of fix any power gap there. But to be honest, there shouldn't be a huge power gap anyway. But yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go Goliath. And they're in Volo's Guide to Monsters, so I'm going to get a strength increase of 1 and strength of 2 and con of 1. So my strength does come up to that 9. Constitution comes up to a 15. Again, age, alignment, size, all that stuff is just kind of like, this is what they're normally like. I am still size medium, even though I'm probably a good, 2 feet taller than Zelda over here.
Right, easy.
Walking speed is still 30 feet. Like I said, most things are.
She's probably lucky if she's 5'10".
Right. Oh, nice. Natural athlete. You have proficiency in the athletics skill. That's cool. I'll take that. Boom.
That's so funny.
Stone's Endurance. This is a fun one. Once per day, when I would drop down to 0 hit points, I can instead... that's the half orc. Once per day, when I take damage, there we go, I can reduce the damage by a d12 plus my constitution modifier. Actually, that's once per rest, so that's nice. Powerful build. This sort of thing, honestly, normally only comes into play occasionally, if at all, but I count as one size larger when determining carrying capacity or the weight I can push, drag, or lift. Same thing with Mountainborn. This rarely comes into play, but sometimes it could. Acclimated to high altitude, and naturally adapted to cold climates. Normally doesn't come into play much, but that's that. Languages, I get Common and Giant.
That's interesting in and of itself.
Yeah, knowing Giant is kind of fun. So yeah, that is my race. I guess back to sorcerer crap. So after that, so we're just gonna go ahead and finish off at first level. So the other things we get our spells, and then first level sorcerers do get to choose their sorceress origin as well. I don't know about you, but I like to save spells for last.
Kinda, yeah. Like I already know what I want to do, so I already know the spells that I want.
Well, I'm having an idea of the spells that I want. Like I'm kind of wanting to be pretty evocation heavy. I feel like, with kind of how I'm making this guy. But yeah, as far as actually picking them, I normally do that after I've done everything else.
Yeah, I do that after. Like I know, like I would literally go. I'm going to choose Divine Soul.
Okay,
because that makes sense for this character. And and the reason why I already know a couple of the spells I want is because, like, with a Divine Soul, you can pick from the cleric spell list.
Yeah.
And I would take Healing Word and because it's a bonus action because she's known to have a healer. And I would
Mhm.
take Guiding Bolt. And here's the cool thing: I would describe the Guiding Bolt when I'm playing as she's drawing back a bow made of light because it's a
Mm.
ranged attack
Yeah, yeah,
spell,
yeah.
and then launch that. So that's a really cool flavor for that.
Yeah, that's the thing
Everything
too,
else is
especially,
subjective.
and it's not only for spellcasters, but even martial characters, as you're kind of describing your gear. I think one really cool thing that 5e has done is it simplified everything to where, rather than there being 52 different types of sword in the game, there's long sword and short sword.
Right.
And you can grab and rapier, I guess. But you can grab a long sword and be like, again, like, you want to talk with your DM, but any good DM should be more than willing to kind of open this up for discussion for flavor and be like, hey, I want this long sword to be flavored like a Middle Eastern curved blade or something like that, and that's kind of the flavor that I want my fighter to have. Or this long sword, no, this is like or maybe a great sword. This is like a claymore, this is like William Wallace's sword in Braveheart
Right.
or whatever. It's like, okay, cool. Like, you're already starting to shape your character right here when you're
Yep.
picking your equipment, picking your spells. You can infuse all that flavor and really differentiate even one fighter from another, one sorcerer from another, as we're doing here.
Right.
So yeah, let's go ahead and just grab your subclass here. So you decided you were going to be a Divine Soul Sorcerer. I'm just going to put this under features and traits. You chose Divine Soul. So you are going to get, at first level, basically, right here, the Divine Magic. Like you said, you are able to use cleric spells as well.
Yep.
Additionally, you choose. Additionally, you choose an affinity for the source of your divine power: good,
Oh,
evil, law,
good.
chaos, or neutrality. You learn an
So
additional spell
lawful
based
good.
on that affinity. It does not count against the number of spells known, which is pretty awesome. So you're
Right.
choosing good. That means that you get the Cure Wounds spell,
Right.
and that does not count against the number of spells that you know. So we're going to come
Mm-hmm.
down here to your spellcasting sheet and just type on in
I
Cure
like what Jordan's saying too. He likes to look at
Wounds.
artwork to kind of help him get ideas, and then like play with the options on Hero Forge. That's another way of kind of coming up with ideas for it as well.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That's a really good one. I like looking at artwork. I like just kind of going off of different media that you like, any of that
Mm-hmm.
sort of thing. What else do you get? Also, at first level, you get Favored by the Gods. Basically, once per rest, if you fail a saving throw or miss with an attack roll, you can add a 2d4 to the roll.
Right.
It's a pretty cool little thing that Divine Soul sorcerers get.
Not
Uh,
overpowered. It's just nice.
no. For me, I'm gonna go ahead and I've already kind of hinted at this. I'm gonna go with the Wild Magic. I just think that kind of fits this guy. He's just kind of an element of chaos, really. Um, so that's you might have heard of this one. Basically, whenever a spell is cast of first level or higher, the DM can have you roll a d20. If you roll a natural 1, then you get to roll on this fancy little Wild Magic Surge table and find out what happens.
Right.
It's a fun little mechanic. I think it's it's more it's more legendary than it really should be, I guess.
Right.
But like, there's fun little bonuses, there's fun little negatives for sure as well. It's just a fun little thing, but it's dripping with flavor, which I think is pretty cool. And then additionally, I get this Tides of Chaos. I can manipulate the forces of chance and gain advantage on one attack roll, ability check, or saving throw. I can do that once per day, basically. So that is the special stuff that I get there. I'm going to go ahead and put that right here. Wild Magic. I guess all that's left then is to pick spells and then yeah, just kind of really flesh out that character with like personality traits and alignments and just kind of like background ideas. So this is where we really want to like we're kind of I don't really want to go into all of the picking of spells. I don't think we need to. I think we've kind of already talked about how Zelda is going to be picking a lot off that cleric list. Maybe mixing in some like buffs and that sort of thing from the sorcerer list. I am going to be picking almost exclusively damage, fire, evocation, that sort of stuff. But this is where we can go ahead and pick those spells, but now we can really start to flesh the character out and make them come alive. Some of the more stuff that's not really in the mechanics, that's more in just kind of like the flavor, I guess, of the game. So
the narrative.
You already have a alignment picked out.
You
said lawful good?
So lawful good.
Yeah.
It's just because that's how she is.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think my guy is 100% chaotic. But I think chaotic good. Yeah.
We got like a 90s sitcom in the making here. One's lawful good, one's chaotic. Tune in next week.
Right. One's trying to keep the laws, the other one's just going crazy and blowing everything up. Yeah.
Right.
And then
party.
So then we come down to these four, right? The personality traits, ideals, bonds, and flaws. How do you normally deal with that, Steve?
I keep mine pretty open and simple, honestly, because like I like to, when it comes to like the game, like there's a lot of things at level 1 that you just don't know. Like you may have a few things, like I'd say she's kind of naive and sheltered. I'd say that's almost kind of like a flaw, but at the same time, the bond is to serve her people because she's a noble. And she just has an ideal of the greater good of trying to do what's right. So, but that, and the cool thing about that though is it can change as the game goes on. Maybe she gains additional flaws. Maybe she gains additional ideals. I try to keep that stuff pretty simple, so that way I can adjust it as I go.
Yeah, I just said I like looking at the backgrounds for bonds and flaws and the backgrounds for ideas. Yeah, that is definitely a great note. For whatever background you choose, there's going to be a whole section, personality traits, ideals, bonds, flaws, that can certainly help. Sometimes I look through those. Most of the time, I just kind of figure it out as I go. Sometimes I don't fill them in, and I probably should.
But you may not know where you're going with the character yet. So, like, I normally don't, like, when I DM, I don't normally look at those.
Yeah.
Because I just want to see how the players are going to play them first. It's way too early at level 1 for me to even take that into consideration. That's me personally.
I think as a player, if you already know enough about your character that you don't really want to fill those in yet and want to kind of like let it gradually form, that can be fine. I also think, though, if you don't really know what you're doing, these are great tools to help you learn how to play a character. If you've never really done it before or haven't really, like, if you've never had a memorable character that you've made or anything like that, or if this is like your first time making a character, definitely do these. Not saying that they're not important. I think like even what is just written down here for Zelda, I can look at this sheet and now understand her a little bit more. I'm naive and sheltered. The greater good is what matters. I serve my people. That's great. For my character here, I've kind of got a pretty decent idea of what I want to do with him, to where, you know, maybe I wouldn't have thought to write these down, but they're here. So let me think. I think an ideal is going to be he really cares about nature. I think the natural world is not to, maybe this is a bond. You know,
I'm having a good time with this, by the way. I think this is a really fun exercise.
World is not to be disturbed by the advancement of mankind. Maybe that. Like, he really cares about nature. He's not a huge fan of like massive cities, that sort of thing. ideals. Yeah, I mean, ideals and bonds are always so intertwined. Nature is good. I'm just gonna say that.
Nature is good.
Flaws. I have a temper. I can't always control my magic. I think that's kind of a cool, especially for a wild magic sorcerer, to just kind of throw that in there. And then maybe I can play with that too. Like, even if John, the player, is in control of what's happening, like I'm not rolling on the wild magic surge, maybe like, I don't know, I can like accidentally cast prestidigitation every once in a while, and fun things can happen in that regards if that's like a flaw my character has that I've kind of already thought of, you know. It's kind of fun. And then yeah, I don't know, I don't have anything in here in personality traits. I think like he's generally kind-hearted. Kind-hearted? What? Hearted. And gentle.
Right.
But carries a big stick.
Ah. Fuck with me, I can whop you.
So, I mean, that right there already gives us a pretty good idea of who these two characters are. Yeah. I don't know, is there anything else we need to go over with the actual creation of these guys here?
No. I like where we're at. I mean, for a level 1, I mean, this is perfect. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not really like, because from there it's subjective. Like, what spells are we going to take? And then and we kind of already have an idea, but you can see the difference between the two characters already.
Yeah.
Like, he built it with a unique theme. I built mine off of a character that I love, because like I don't like sorcerers, so I thought of something real quick, and I'm like, well, this would make sense as a sorcerer because she doesn't have to be a wizard. She can, and she's very attractive and very good with people, so we can play off of that and minimize her spells to fit this mold of character, and then build in a backstory where she reincarnates every whatever years when something happens.
Yeah,
A really
like
cool divine sorcerer, object where you can still play your fantasy. Like, I want to play this one because I really like this and I want to incorporate it into your game. Of course, DM willing. But, at the same time, you got to also understand that you are not the Princess Zelda, but you are a person named Zelda with a noble background and that kind of thing. But you can role play that so easy in that case.
Right, I think that's important. If you're taking inspiration from pre-established media, just don't just copy it and play the exact character. You can clearly play someone inspired by that, right? Like Gareth Gathaway, it wasn't originally inspired by Darth Vader, but as he expanded, he was very much inspired by Darth Vader.
Yeah,
but he's
so
not
much fun.
He's not Darth Vader. Like, he's obviously a very different.
No, he's
character.
Gareth. Yeah. He's Gareth.
And I think
his fall was different. Well, actually, it was similar because his godmother got killed.
Yeah.
It's similar.
There are a lot of similarities, but yeah, I mean, I think it can you can definitely build off of pre-established media or whatever, but not do the exact same thing. I think looking at artwork is huge for kind of trying to get a good idea of some fun characters. There are good, if you just kind of Google like D&D character idea generator or something like that, you'll find some good ones. I like who the fuck is my D&D character. That's a fun one.
Yeah.
Always has some interesting stuff, but there are other good ones too, just to kind of help get those wheels turning. But yeah, I think it always starts with a concept.
Right. But that's such a cool thing we just did. Like, I had a theme and you had something. You're like, I'm gonna come up with this on the spot.
And then I also think, like, once you've kind of got your character more or less built, there's then that next step of talking with your DM and figuring out kind of how they fit in the world if you want to really ground them in kind of that world, right? Like, if you want to start to establish a big backstory, like, how can you do that? You don't have to, but, like, I think, for instance, Tracy is a drow, a drow wizard, my goodness, in my home game.
Right.
And she and I have talked a decent bit about, like, okay, what does drow society look like in my world, and to kind of help her establish her
Right.
backstory. And she was actually able to help me build out some of that in my world, which is pretty cool. So
Right.
we are almost out of time, but you know what? I kind of want to just go ahead and take a couple of questions here. So let's do it. Why not?
Alrighty.
I've got one from Jimmy here that I wanted to get to because I liked it. He's asking what are the most interesting and best backstories you've ever had in a game and why? And then what do you do when players don't give you backstories or give you short subpar ones? And how do you like to incorporate backstories into games? And how do you expect players to incorporate it into their play?
Gotcha.
It's kind of like
I
4
don't
questions in
necessarily
one,
have
but
right. I don't necessarily like have something where I expect the player to be a certain way. But good night, buddy.
See you,
See you
Rex.
later. But like I like to ask players like you know, outside of the game, give an idea. If they don't have a backstory and I want to include them, I'll make one for them if they really need me to. But be prepared for that though, because if I have to make it for you, you might turn into Strahd. But it'll be interesting. But I do like to I'm big on arcs. Like at certain points in the game, I like to use characters' backstories and build arcs because I think it helps me creatively. I know, and I want the players to feel like they're a part of that world. So now it's hard to do it for everybody, especially like I run very large, you know, size party games. But and when I do get to do it, I like to make that person feel as included as possible and revolve it around them. That doesn't mean the rest of the party isn't involved, but the focus narratively is this character, their choices, and so on. So those are my favorites. Is when somebody comes to me with an idea and tells me about their character, and then I literally look at him and go, "I have so many ideas for this." Jordan did that with me for his warlock, and I'm like, oh buddy. So many things are gonna be able to do with this.
yeah, I haven't always been the best at this, but I really like to include character backstories into the campaign, into a story arc, basically. I think
Right.
I think I've been able to do that with some characters. I think I've done that with Nakus pretty well, but that's because I
Right.
know Nakus's backstory the best. Grady and I made his backstory together. Um,
Right.
and that's made that so easy for me to incorporate. I've been able to do that a little bit with Dash. I feel like
A little bit.
you kind of came up with the concept for Uncle Steve Winklepleck, and I was like, great,
Yeah.
I love it, and I was able to run with that. I think that was pretty
It's
fantastic.
Ron Swanson.
There's more that I have with Dash in the back of my head with him having come from
Right.
the halflings and whatnot. I think I've been able to do that with Delia in the
Yep.
Helpful Haunt game, just because again I know I figured this, like, I wanted to do Tomb of Annihilation and knew this was a good way to get you guys over there.
Right.
I've been able to do that with a little bit with Desmond in that game as well. Not a
Right.
ton. Like, there wasn't an arc, but there was a little bit of stuff. So like I've done it some here and there. I did it with Veil of Shadows. I think was one of the best that I ever did it with.
Yeah, that was the
Um,
best one that I remember right off the bat. But that's just something that you've said, hey, I need to work on, and you've
yeah,
worked on it. And that's just
yeah,
something you know that,
yeah.
hey, this is a spot in my game that I know I personally need to work on. And there's no, and that's okay. I
Yeah, and I'm
mean,
trying to get better at it and remember that and continue to get better at it now. Like, I'm trying to, like, I don't know if you noticed, but like in the last One Women Adventure Tour game,
yeah,
there were like
there were
three or
so
four
many.
like backstory drops, like
Right.
just kind
There
of
were so
little
many. I
hooks
did
of what's
notice
gonna
that.
come.
Yeah. I
Um,
did notice that. I was like, holy shit, look at
yeah,
him. I'm like, okay, right on. I didn't say anything because I was like, let's let it play out. But
yeah,
Jordan's right. It is easy to do when you hang out and talk a lot. But I also do it over Discord too. Like I'll send somebody a message. I'll take some time if they're available and I'm available, and I'll call them or I'll talk to them about it. Or if they have an idea, they'll send me a blurb and then I'll send them a blurb back. It is
yeah,
a lot about communication. Like
yeah,
if you want to incorporate something, and it does have to be a little bit over the table knowledge too, with that character, at least in my opinion, to be like, you're from here, but bad things are happening. So be prepared for that. And we'll tell this story and we'll bring everybody on board with us. So I've done that before.
Yeah.
We brought in backstory with when we did the Strahd piece for Adrian's character. We brought in Grady, so he played the Strahd version of Hocus. And
Yeah.
that was cool. And then it led to more story because it gave your character purpose to try to save that soul. So it just all just there's so many cool things we can do with that.
And then
your characters are so essential, basically.
Right, and I will say for the second part of Jimmy's question there, if what players give you like lackluster backstories or whatever, it depends on the player. If they are clearly having fun and they couldn't care less about their backstory, that's fine. For me anyway, I used to be of the mindset of that's not acceptable. And I know Steve is apparently of the mindset of that's fine, I'll make you one. And I think that's awesome. I think that works well for him.
Right.
I've just kind of come to the point to where I'm like, that's fine. If you are having fun and engaged and you don't have a backstory, then that's fine. Like
that's okay.
If you don't want it, if that's a part of the game that's not fun for you, then that's fine.
Yeah, Dash doesn't really have much of a backstory, guys. To be honest.
Now, if you're not having fun, if you're wanting to get some more screen time and whatnot, then I'll work with you and we'll kind of come up with something. I'll ask you questions about what your potential backstory is. I actually have a couple of things in mind as I'm saying that, but yeah, so it really depends on the player. If I feel like they kind of need that more screen time or whatever, then yeah, I'll try and work with them. If they feels like no, they're fine, they just don't need it, then that's fine. Yeah, Dash's backstory is I lived with halflings and now I want adventure. I think that's basically it. But even then, like I've introduced characters from his past and whatnot, and it's worked. So.
Not every backstory has to be 50,000 paragraphs. It just depends on where your game is going. I've told John with that character several times. So like we can workshop it if we want to add more stuff to it. I keep that character pretty open on purpose. But then there's characters like Gareth, who's like, I'm from here. I do this. This is the reason why I do this. Or probably one of my favorites would be Dalton. That was a sad backstory. Like, why am I a bandit? Because my whole village and pregnant wife was killed, and X, Y, and Z. And,
you had a big backstory for that one.
Right. So it just really depends on.
Dalton's another character that I used to backstory though.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, I like that one.
I do want to jump. I mean, I feel like we can rattle through a couple more questions real quick. We are now at what our normal end time would be. I don't care if it's a little long, as long as Steve's okay. He's probably going to stream Destiny after this anyway. I've got one right here that kind of piggybacks off of Jimmy's. If there's we have tips for incorporating your character's backstory into the campaign without shoving it down the throats of your DM/fellow players/viewers, and also tips for incorporating your backstory naturally. I think, and this is actually coming from my wife, and we kind of talked about how like it can be, there's a difference between. There's the character who like it's like introduce your character and they're like I am a dark brooding character who doesn't speak to you, and that's all the information you get. It's like, okay, great, thanks, dude. And then the next guy is like, introduce your character, and they're like, okay, so my name is Jimbo Steveathon, and I come from the great wilds of the north. I have here is my race, here is my class, here's the sword that hangs to my side, and every single thing that's happened in my life. See, when I was 3, I watched as my mother was skewered by an orc, and from that time, I have vowed vengeance against every orc. It's like, we're 4 people in a tavern. Why are you telling us all this? So it's just kind of like, how do you?
I like that though. Like,
how do you like have this backstory, but let it unfold naturally rather than just kind of jamming it down your throat and trying to make it always be the center of attention, I guess.
communication is key. You don't have to jam it down my throat, but at the same time, I know I'm forgetful sometimes.
Mm,
And if you want that to come up, you need to make an effort to let me know. Personally, I need
mm,
you to let me know. So that way I can workshop it with you, take some time and schedule it out. I don't mind doing that.
yeah.
Even when I play Destiny, I talk Dungeons and Dragons, guys.
Right.
Hit me up. I have no problem, discussing that while I'm playing other games. I really don't. If anything, it's a passion of mine. I get to do two things that I like to do at once. But for me, it's, communicate with me what do you expect from this game slash
Yeah.
character,
Yeah,
and how can we make it happen?
I think that's pretty good. That's a good way to kind of go about things is communicate with your DM to kind of get that expectation out there. Make sure that they know that this is my backstory and I would love for it to come into
Right.
play.
Right.
Because yeah, I mean I think that is a totally fine expectation to have. And then I think like talking about it in game is totally fine.
Right.
It just can certainly get to be a drag if it's like every time you talk to them, it's like, yes, so, every time the character comes up, they're talking about some other sort of nonsense that's completely unrelated to the current gameplay. So, like,
Right.
I've got an example here that, Critical Role, Tiberius would
Fuck that guy.
before he was let go. Um, like there
Right.
were so many times when the party was just like trying to kind of figure out a thing and do something or whatever, and he's like, "Well, I'm going to remind all of you that I'm a noble from Draconia, and I can write a letter to do blah blah blah." And you could tell Matt and all the players were like, "What the hell are you doing? Like, we understand that
Right.
that's your backstory. You don't need to tell us anymore. That has nothing to do with what we're doing right now." And I think that's kind of an example of someone shoving their backstory down your throat. And there's ways to play into that backstory without every single difficulty. It's like, well, I'll write a letter to get an army here to back us up. It's like, shut up.
No, you're not.
Yeah. So I think that's I think like in that scenario, if you were that player, you can maybe like once or twice try that for something huge or whatever, or certainly talk about father back in wherever. Like, I mean, how many times did
Yeah.
Rupert talk about being from the Cadian Empire and being all
Right.
like hoity-toity and whatnot? But like, there's a like you can play into your backstory without always having it be like the center of attention and the thing that will always fix everything, I think.
Right.
um and then we've got a lot more we've got a couple more that are basically along the lines of uh what are some, and this will probably be kind of the last thing, what are some unique character builds, character ideas that you haven't had the chance to create yet? Like, what do you got in the vault, I guess?
My barbarian for
Yeah.
sure. Because I had a really cool idea. I wanted to play my theme from the Romance of the Three Kingdoms. He'll be a stoic, but yet not like a complete brute. I want to try to make him at least with a, hopefully, if the dice gods are fine, give me a 10 in intelligence, because I want him to be a soldier background, somebody who actually is very, like, not a genius, but a true warrior. Like,
Yeah.
takes XYZ levels in barbarian, maybe start flushing it out for fighter going forward. But I want him to be a strength based. Like, I'm going to wield this great sword slash. It's a curved falchion, and he's going to have one eye. He's literally going to be Jahudun, and he's going to have that loyalty factor. He's no longer in the military, and after his kingdom was destroyed, or the last war or whatever, depending on the setting, and go from there. So it's definitely a switch, because I do like to play a lot of caster support kind of stuff, but I wanted something different that's a little bit more in your face with no magic, other than like if he gets lucky and finds items. But I just wanted to. I know Tracy was talking about doing that, but I want to do it first. I've already called dibs, because I feel like we all need to a round of playing classes that we don't play often, and it's growth, and I get to explore that story of what I want to tell. Like, I'm actually very much looking forward to making that character. As fun as Desmond is, Desmond only goes so far with me, and I want something a little bit more serious and tell that story versus, my classic Yucks character. So,
Well,
that's where I'm looking at.
it's fun to go back and forth, right? Like to
Right.
have the serious one and then the fun one and whatnot, and kind of go back and forth there. Is that the
Right.
only one you've got really kind of on your mind right now, or is there
That one
anything
is
else in
my
the vault?
big one.
Okay.
That's my big one because the other one would be like a Legend of Zelda Link kind of character
That's right. Yeah, you were
where
talking
he
about
would
that.
be I'd probably take like
Be a ranger.
I'd be a strength-based ranger, sword and board, and probably take a little bit in fighter eventually. I don't know. I might keep it straight ranger because like I like that idea of wearing like a tunic and chainmail, being tanky but not being tanky, like
Yeah.
and trying to find a way to incorporate that stat wise to be that
Well,
kind
and
of
he
a
always
fighter.
has. He's always got that magic too. So
Right.
which
He's got a little
rangers
bit of
get,
magic.
which is cool.
Right. So that's my other one, but the barbarian is definitely first because I've played a ranger, like not too long ago. So my barbarian is the one I want to lean toward first.
Yeah, I've got. I mean, I've got a decent amount of very unfinished ideas. I've got a folder on my computer of like future character ideas. I've got characters that I've played like one time or whatever and would love to like really play. One that sticks out for sure is Duke. He was my highwayman from like I played him
Right.
like once or
That's a good one.
twice. So yeah, I made a custom class called the Nomad. Highwayman is one of the subclasses in there, and he is
Some John Wayne shit.
yeah. I mean yeah, he's just fun looking. I would love to get to play him at some point.
Right.
I what else do I got here? I've got a Goblin Barbarian that I have built, con-based
Right.
barbarian, former sailor, um, who I think would be kind of fun to play at some point.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, I've got a monk, a shadow monk. I think would be a lot of fun to play.
Right.
Yeah, I've got an idea for Shadow Monk Spy, basically a ninja,
Right.
which I think would be a lot of fun. Potentially multi-class into Rogue at some point. Um,
Which would make
yeah,
sense.
just like the ultimate stealth infiltrator, basically.
Right.
I think that could be a lot of fun, just trying to play up that ninja idea as much as possible. Um, Yeah, obviously Nomad is kind of at the top of my list though, because I really want to see that play tested more. But there's so many different ideas I've had too. I think I want to play another fighter again. I would love to remake my first character and give him a proper campaign to play in. Fair and Bright Star. He's a high elf, great weapon fighter. Eldritch Knight, which could be I still think Eldritch Knight is one of the coolest classes in the game, and think that would be a
It's
lot of
unique.
fun to get to play that in a full campaign. Um, yeah, those are kind of the ones that are at the forefront of my mind right now. But I really do like to go kind of like bounce between one side and the other a lot. Like I played Titus, who was lawful good, and then went
Right.
to then went to Malorus, who is my
Oh, that
believe it or not,
complete
my
fucking
most
opposite.
evil character that I've ever played. That
Yeah, I
includes
believe it.
Rupert.
That's pretty. He's pretty dark. Yeah,
uh, and
and he got
then
darker.
and then from him I went to, yeah, he wasn't as bad in the actual playing of the campaign, but like as the character kind of evolved, yeah,
He
he's
got darker.
um
We've
then
used him as
from
bad guys for like 2 different campaigns as well.
Yeah,
pretty
then from
funny.
him I went to Nameless, who was like the most gentle creature in the world.
Right.
And then I went to Markle, who, like, Nameless and
I
Markle were
love
both good
Merkle.
characters, but Nameless was like gentle, won't hurt a fly, and then Markle was like, I will slay everything in my path.
I will slay everything.
And
Is that
then
evil?
yeah.
Evil.
And then from Markle to Rupert,
Yeah.
who was evil, and
As
then
evil as it
from
comes.
evil Rupert, who just doesn't give a shit about anybody, to Xander, who is my character, other than Titus, who most willing to lay down his life for whatever, for anybody. Actually, maybe even more so than Titus, to be honest. Like,
Yeah,
he's
I
the
can
most
see him doing that.
selfless creature I've ever made. So like, and now I'm at Alistair, who's really like, he's really
He's
not
not
an
developed a
opposite at
lot yet.
all. He's very kind of
Right.
in the middle there, which is interesting. It's not normally I go from one extreme to the other. So I don't know. We'll
Yeah.
we'll kind of see. I'll probably
We'll
play
see
the
how he
exact
grows.
opposite of whatever Alistair is next. So
Yeah. It'll grow.
uh well, with that though, that is the episode, I suppose. We went a little long. I figured we
That's
would so
okay.
that we could get to some questions. I figured it made some more sense to get to some questions today rather than hold on to them till next week. But
Right.
next week, we'll be back with another topic. In the meantime, you can catch Steve over at Stevo the DMO. A lot of
Yep.
times he ends up streaming later on Wednesdays.
I will be alive as soon as we're done. I've
See, there
got
you go.
guys who are like already talking to me. I've already logged in and picking up quests so that way we can do some of the new stuff. So don't worry, I'll be doing something. And again, if you want to hit me up about D&D, please do so. Just because I play other games, let's be honest, my most popular is when I DM. So
Right. And he streams every once in a while here and there too. Usually either
yep.
playing Destiny or D&D prep. Apparently not playing his like Final Fantasy and retro games anymore.
Kind of put that on a hold. I did stream Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild emulator, which was fun. I'm gonna do that some more because I've been reading this online or YouTube series. It's the Ocarina of Time, and it's really actually pretty dark listening to it, but it's been so good. So I'm on a Legend of Zelda kick right now, and given the Final Fantasy a little bit of a break.
Well, you should just play Ocarina then, dude.
I want to play that too, but
I guarantee you it'll be a lot easier to get an N64 emulator working than
I've got
than
it.
a
I
Switch
got
emulator.
it.
Okay.
I've got it. I've got it. It's running it's beautiful. It's running about 20 frames, which isn't too bad considering, like it's like the Switch. I don't think really has a lot of frames to it anyway,
Yeah.
but I feel like we're doing pretty good with that.
And then you got your game this Sunday?
Yep, we're Midgard is definitely my passion project because it's nostalgia and I've been able to change some things to it. So, and I'm incorporating the players' characters as NPC, so that's been a lot of fun. And then we'll be like this weekend we'll have to do some planning for the Tuesday. I've got that planned, but I'm really bad about if it no longer makes sense, I got to change it. So,
Right
so
on.
we'll be doing that too. So there's going to be a lot of D&D this weekend.
So over at Steve the Yemo, the D&D game, 8 o'clock, no, 7 o'clock, I think, Eastern time.
Yeah, we changed the time. Yeah.
7 o'clock Eastern time on Sunday for sure for that D&D game, and then other times off and on for random other stuff. We'll be back here on Fly Captain Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, with the next installment of Steve's Eberron game. And then, of course, we'll be back here next Wednesday. We'll throw our new topic in the Fly Captain Discord whenever we come up with it. Hopefully, just the next couple of days here.
Right.
If not tonight, you never know. If you want to leave questions, figure out what the topic is ahead of time, please go ahead and click the button to join the Discord. See all the info there. But until
Join us!
until then, thanks you all, and adios.
Good night.